Hi, this is Wishop, and I'm sneaking in this little card reading. Um, we just had the winter solstice, and today, just after noon, was the time of the full moon in Cancer. And this is a really important time of year because I think I mentioned before, but the two solstices um, and then the equinoxes form the hinges of the year. So there are times when, as we're sort of drawing the wheel of the year, we have to change direction in order to keep coming around. So, uh, or if you think of these as hinges of the year on a square, you get to a corner and you have to kind of change direction. So my card just changed direction a tiny bit. Um, I put up these two cards because both of these tarot decks, let me make sure these are in focus for you, have kingfishers in them. And this time of year, the veil is kind of thin, as people like to say, really from the time leading up to Halloween through the winter solstice and really into early January. It is this time of drawing inward and a time of contemplation and a time when we consider those who have passed quite a bit of the time. The holidays, the winter holidays in the northern hemisphere, are a time when people can experience a great longing for home, but they can also realize their estrangement from their homes. They can feel a great sense of loneliness at the same time. They can feel like everybody else is having joy in the season and they're not. So that's when you're really feeling not so great. And in the northern hemisphere, again, I'm saying northern because in the southern hemisphere you're having the summer solstice. So it's another hinge of the year, and the moon and sun are in the same places, but it means something a little different to the rhythm of life in the southern hemisphere. But in the northern hemisphere, as the light dies, as they see it, it's the death of light and then the rebirth of the sun. Because after the solstice, when the sun stands still and the days get longer again, it's the rebirth of the sun. The sun comes back. And that was something that our forebears celebrated because there were times of great cataclysm, ones that we even know about, and then ones that historically we can't really pin down. But some of the ones we know about are great volcanoes. And these volcanoes would erupt and they'd put ash into the atmosphere, and the sun wouldn't be able to shine through it. And it would cause crops to fail and huge loss of life. That's something that they've recently discovered about, probably an Icelandic volcano in 561, 536, something like that. Anyway, it started a cascade of bad effects that created great loss of life and great hardship. So we know that there were other such volcanoes, and they talk about Santorini, which some people think was the ancient Atlantis, and it pumped ash into the atmosphere so that the sun couldn't shine through. So when the sun would look like it was leaving, there was a despair in the pit of the stomach because it was survival on the line. And it still is. And so to feel a sense of something very deep inside you is not a strange thing at all. And coming to terms with that, whether it's through shadow work or just through, embracing yourself, like understanding what a deep creature you are, and that your genes have knowledge that are millions of years old, possibly, certainly at least tens of thousands. You carry wisdom that old in your body, and it knows things and it responds to things. And it's okay to feel those things. Right now at the Cancer full moon, probably everybody's feeling a little sensitive. But I think this year it will be a time where even though people can be sensitive, there'll be an acceptance and an honesty about it. At least I'm hoping so. That allows us to find comfort with ourselves, to feel good about who we are, even if we approach this season with something less than optimism. I say that and I stress it because I actually love this season. It really works for me. It jangles my jingle bells. And it's not just the any particular celebration. There is something about the air. There's something about the way the stars look in the sky. I was outside today and the moon was full. I mean, it was after sunset. The moon was full, huge, and there were streaky clouds around it, and it looked like a picture book. It was so perfect and so wonderful. So there's something about this time that really works for me, but I have people in my family who absolutely this time of year doesn't work for them on a very essential level. So I think it's a great time to just acknowledge who you are. Don't try to fight it, but do try to love yourself up. It's a time for nurturance. So if you didn't feel nurtured in your early childhood, or you didn't feel nurtured at home, or you think you're going to go into a family situation that might be less than nurturing, make sure you're putting things in place that nurture you, because you deserve it. And it'll also just make everything so much nicer. So often, maybe it's not that we've completely been unnurtured, but there are parts of ourselves, parts of our identity in fullness that are misunderstood by people, even ones that we love tremendously. So why do I have these kingfishers up? Okay, let me get to the point. This is the time of year that in the ancient Mediterranean was called the Halcyon days. It was named for a goddess Alcyone, but the Halcyon days, if you're familiar with the adjective halcyon, it means peaceful, blissful, serene. And the kingfisher lays its eggs near the shoreline during this time of year. And so the way the legend goes, the sea itself calms down for 7 days, right near the solstice, not coincidentally, or at least I don't think so. The sea will calm for 7 days so that the kingfisher can lay its eggs. An interesting thing about the kingfisher is that the male and female are both this brightly colored. So I have it from the animal totem tarot, the Ace of Cups, which would be a very sort of feminine yin card. And here's this beautiful kingfisher. And we can think of her as a she, the queen kingfisher. And she is looking over this new life. And this would be the time of year where she is laying her eggs that are going to hatch in the spring. And here is the king of arrows, kingfisher, the king of swords, you might think of it. So this is a very sort of masculine, yang aspect of the kingfisher. And he also, notice how still the waters are beneath him. These little, bright, beautiful birds were widely thought, and still are thought. I believe it's still the case in Asia, in the Mediterranean. There is a band in India. So this sort of climatic band where they live, that they're universally considered prosperity birds, signs of peace and plenty. And this little brightly colored bird can tell the sea to stop raging so that it can do its business. So there's something very powerful, very beautiful about it, and a sense of command. And so the kingfisher started showing up for me fairly recently, And so it's sort of an animal totem that kind of started showing up. So I thought I would share it with you. And I also thought I'd share with you a couple other cards that relate to this time of year. So if you haven't maybe picked a totem or an idea or sort of a philosophical framework, maybe to carry with you through the holidays, through this time of evaluating the last year and making plans for the year ahead, maybe some of these would give you some ideas. So the moon, the full moon in Cancer, is always tied to the High Priestess card. So here are two High Priestess cards. Here is the spider, again from the Animal Totem Tarot. So she's the weaver and the weaver of fate. Here, of course, is the moon. Spiders knew everything, and they were thought to be wise. And of course, you have the legends of Grandmother Spider. So here from the Wildwood Tarot is the seer, and she's this sort of shamanic character, and she's scrying into this water, and she's standing by this tree, and she's wearing a cloak that looks like it's made of hides and of bird feathers, and she's got a little, looks like maybe a little skull around her neck, and she's got a staff with her, basically sort of like her gree hanging from it. She's got her totems and her tools hanging from it. And so there's this idea that she is really part of everything around her, and it allows her to read the signs. And so that, I think, is something that if you're feeling comfortable with yourself and accepting of yourself as you are, you're going to be able to read the signs. You're going to be able to tell when the sea is calm and you can basically lay your eggs for the future. You're going to be able to detect what's going on. There is a sense here that there have been deep hidden currents and that you can be alert to them, and you can read in them potentials for yourself going forward. So the next card implied by Cancer is the Chariot card. So look at these two. A lot of times we think of the Rider-Waite-Smith chariot, and we've got this charioteer and this sort of square stone box. And there is the sense of command in it. But I like these two because we have the orca, and we can think in terms of Cancer of this fierce mother that you don't want to tangle with. And you can think too about being a mother to yourself, especially if there are parts of you that nobody else has mothered. If there are parts of you that nobody else quite gets or accepts or understands, then how can you parent, in a way, those parts of you and sort of fiercely defend them? So I like this for the Chariot. And also we have the Archer. So Cancer is, of course, the sign of the moon, and the moon goddesses are frequently archers. Artemis and Diana, and they are mistresses of animals, which is another reason why I wanted to show you these animal cards, because the moon, the goddess of the moon, is frequently seen as a mistress of animals. So if animals are appearing to you, or any of these you sort of like and they sort of speak to you, it might be a good time to sort of listen to the animal kingdom and see if there are examples or ideals or lessons or messages you can take from it. So here is the moon itself. In this case, we've got a gorgeous owl and the reflection. And here we have, looks like a water bird of some kind, maybe a stork or a crane. Here's the sacred bull and the reflection of the moon in the water. Always the moon is about reflections and about dreams, but the reflections of the moon are also about images. What kind of image do we portray to the world and to ourselves? So last I will do the Queen of Cups, and then we'll get into the actual reading. This Queen of Vessels from the Wildwood Tarot is the salmon. And the salmon was the salmon of wisdom who knew everything. And so to be able to shape change into a salmon basically was an embodiment of all the ancient wisdom that there could be. And I won't go too far into the Celtic mythology, but if salmon speaks to you, look it up, because there are a lot of great stories, and they may inspire you to metamorphoses that you would like to make. So this Queen of Cups is an interesting one because it's the moose from the Animal Totem Tarot. Moose, and I didn't know this until I read it here, and the creator of the deck was also very interested to read it here. Let me tell you who this is. It is Leeza Robertson, the illustration by Eugene Smith. She discovered that moose will dive down to the bottom of the water to get the freshest, juiciest greens. They don't care at all. They're not bothered in the least. So you might not think of them as swimmers, but the moose don't know that, and they will frequently submerge all the way to get what they want. And I really liked the idea that there's something so unexpected about that. Not only will they go into the deep waters to get what they want, they don't care if you think they can do it or not. Doesn't matter. And I really liked that. So I shuffled up some cards. Let's get to the Lenormand. And I should put a timestamp in here, and I think I will, that says, blah blah for 16 minutes, and then we get to the reading. Okay. I'll at least put a comment to that effect. So here we go. I did not exactly get these very well centered. Here we go. All right, so these are 3 Lenormand cards, and I also have an Uno card for sort of general movement. So let's see where we're at. The Mountain, the Scythe, and the Star. Okay, so if we look at this in sort of a present, past, future kind of a way, there is an obstacle, or think of it like an iceberg. There is that sense of something breaking, of, here, I'll see if I can bust some of the glare, something needing to break. There is something whose time is coming. And we can tell it's coming because the pointy end of the scythe is pointing at the mountain, as if the scythe will cut this down to size, but it might do so in a sudden sort of way. And that is kind of what it does. So there could be an obstacle that you have been facing. They have this as an Aries card. I tend to think of it more as a Capricorn card, but it's something in your material life. It can be a distance that seems so far you just can't traverse it, something that seems too high a goal, too far away from you, an obstacle that's been too resistant to your overcoming it. And you look at this scythe and it's pointing right there, like there's a sudden break or a sudden chipping away. And then I really love this picture of the star, because it's just this, almost this nova. It's this gorgeous star aiming to the heavens. So it's not clear to me what could break open, but we're definitely at one of those threshold times of year. You may feel it. It may imply a certain pressure upon you. Try to relax with the pressure as much as you can, and to be as kind to yourself as you can. But look for the cracks. It could be cracks in the persona of someone who's been hard to get along with, and now you can see a way that you can relate to them. Or it could be a crack in a relationship where I don't think it has to be a bad thing. It could be something, actually, I mean, I sort of think it is good. It brings hope. but there's something that's been stuck in place, and it's going to change. It's going to change, and it could be kind of surprising. I was really seeing this big emotional quality about people getting very real about who they are and what they want. And it seems like there could be an end to certain institutions or established ways of doing things that aren't working, as we sort of take this rocket ship to something that feels more optimistic, something that is worth dreaming of. Yeah, I don't think that the situation we're in now feels like it's worth our fondest dreams. And we're looking for something worth having that kind of hope in, that kind of excitement about. And it looks like there's going to be a break in something long standing that will allow you to see that glimmer of hope and allow you to push things forward in a new way. And I'm not one who always says, oh, throw out everything in your life and go for the new. I mean, you sort of hear that reading 50 times a week if you listen to as many readings as I do. And I do listen to a ton of readings because I like to kind of get a load of what people are doing. But it'll be sort of cookie cutter, throw what's not working away. Okay, I get it. But, we can all throw so much away that there's almost nothing left. This is a break in something. I don't feel so much that you're throwing something away as in something is being chipped away. So it could be a chipping away of an obstacle, a chipping away of a block in a relationship, a chipping away of a persona. Like if you think of this as Mount Rushmore and someone's face is carved in here, like we're chipping away at that being carved in stone so that we can find the beating heart underneath. And within that is a great deal of healing. I mean, it's just a great deal of healing and hope. And that's very Cancerian. It's very part of this kind of nurturing, birthing kind of time period. Yeah. Okay, I think that's what I want to say about that. Let me just flip this Uno card. I just got one Uno card for a sense of movement. Okay. This is, for me, an air card. It is the reverse 2. So if you think of it a little bit like the 2 of Swords, where you'd have this tension, where things are sort of maintained in balance, the 2 of air in reverse is a break in that tension. And it could be a break that starts out with a little bit of an uncomfortable recognition that something has not been fair, something has not been just. The scythe can come through with some truth and justice and karma like that. Like something hasn't been fair, something hasn't been just. And it could be that you are the person who admits that a way that you have felt about something or a way that you've dealt with something hasn't been fair to the other people involved, maybe hasn't been fair to yourself. Hasn't been just. Maybe you've been accepting a situation that isn't just towards you, but the breaking of that tension in a powerful way, is what brings this hope. You should be able to step forward out of this period with a great deal of hope. And I didn't mention yet, I don't think, but I did title it, when this full moon, full moon cycles tend to be, 2 weeks or a month. This full moon is going to end with a new moon in Capricorn. Now, I typically see the mountain as a sign of Capricorn. A new moon in Capricorn, which is also a partial solar eclipse. So we're going to hit eclipse season starting the first week of January. So you can believe that the full moon, which is kicking this off with the solstice and heading into this 2-week period, this is pretty powerful. Venus is in trine with Neptune, so they're supporting each other. These are very watery planets. Venus wants good relations. Venus wants love. Neptune wants universal love. So people can emphasize the fact that things can be fantasy, but really this is also a time when relationships can be very much sweetened. We can feel that sense of overflowing compassion that will help us, get over these mountains, because it may be mountains that we have to climb within ourselves. It might be that somebody else would like to break the ice with us. Are we going to be ready for that? Are we ready to accept that? So I think that's what's going on. Some very powerful ice breaking going on. A need for compassion for ourselves and for other people. A great time to evaluate what is not working and really make plans for the future that truly inspire you. Not just like, oh, I want to organize my coat closet. Like, dream something big. Like, put something in your heart and your head that really will help light the way for you, that feels worth it, that feels worth your passion and dedication. I think that's kind of what's going on too. So anyway, that's it for me for now. Squeeze this in on my way to my various holiday revelries. And I hope that whatever you're doing, you have a great time and you feel the warmth of the season. Even if there's darkness, when you were in the womb, it was dark too. And that didn't mean it wasn't a loving and embracing space. So feel the cozy hug. Even if nobody has given you a hug, I would like to give you a big, virtual, beautiful, warm, and fuzzy hug. I just want you to feel it. And yeah, and until next time, rock on with your bad selves.